Hello and good morning, friends. Today we're going to be taking a look at a septic system from a house from 1957. No records, nobody's lived here for several years, so we get to find out what's going on in this house and is everything working. So I'm going to take you with me. Let's hop into it. All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to go out here in this backyard and see what pipes do we see. So we got a lid to the tank right here, which is going to be on the front of the tank, off to a okay start. Water level's where it belongs. Then we've got these pipes right over here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my wrench and we'll pop these open, see what we're working with. But more than likely, this is probably a two-way clean out, one going towards the tank, one going out to the absorption system, which will be somewhere over here. One thing we're going to need to make sure that we look for this style of tank is to make sure that it's actually made of concrete. A lot of these older homes, especially in this area, generally use cinder block as their main construction material for their septic systems. Now, back in the day, cinder block was considered to be acceptable and useful, but nowadays you can't do that. And the reason why is there was no real construction standard back then. Everybody just kind of slapped in those systems, didn't really think about, is it going to be strong enough? Is it going to be dealing with any kind of water, such as like a water table issue? Nobody really thought of any of those things, and that usually can lead to some problems. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my wrench so we can open those lids, mirror and flashlight, and we're going to see what's inside this tank. I'll be with you in 2 seconds. All right, so I've gone ahead, opened up these lids, and we've looked inside. So it actually turns out that we've got the tank right in front with that black lid. The first of those white PVC cleanouts is actually over the outlet line, and the second PVC cleanout is going to be on the distribution box. Now, when we look inside this tank, we're going to see some root intrusion. Now, roots are never a good idea to have in your tank, and also can be pretty problematic. The concern with the roots in this particular situation is that the roots are coming through the sidewalls and through the top of the lid. And once that starts happening, the structural integrity of the tank is pretty much compromised. Next to the tank, we can see the remnants of a rather large root ball. We can also see another large tree right over there in close proximity to the septic tank. Now, when roots are introduced into a tank and they're kind of working their way through the sidewalls, really the only option is to replace the tank, unfortunately, right? And that's also why it's important to make sure that you don't put trees next to anything that's septic related or concrete or driveway related, because roots are very strong. They will break stuff. So it's very important to make sure you're not putting that anywhere near any of your equipment so that we don't run that risk down the road. So this pipe is actually going to be over the back of the tank. So we can see here that the baffle is missing on this. It looks like there was a lid that somebody put on top of the pipe at one point and fell in. See if I zoom in so you can see a little bit better. So it may be difficult to see, but you can see the outlet line on the right side of this hole, and then there looks to be a 4-inch pipe sitting on the bottom left side of that hole. Not entirely sure how something like that ends up in the pipe and in the tank like that, unless somebody did it on purpose or forgot about it while they were doing the install. So more than likely what happened was when somebody was replacing this distribution box, they forgot to take out some of their parts when they were done. So that does need to be removed because that is a clogging hazard and potentially an issue. But if you're already replacing the tank, does it really matter at this moment? Not really. So let's go look at the distribution box and I'll show you what's going on over there. So we can see that this is our distribution box. The PVC observation port is broken. You can see that it kind of wiggles and you can see all the dirt on the side. This pipe is basically a straight shot right into the distribution box. The benefit of having an observation port like that on the distribution box is you're able to see how many drain fields do you have? Are they working? Is everything draining the way that it's supposed to drain? Are there any issues going on in the system? So those observation ports are very, very common for relatively modern septic systems. Usually you'll see those on systems from the mid-2000s to now. Unfortunately, the county doesn't have any paperwork, so not 100% sure when this was installed, but if I had to guess, right now with what I've seen, that tank is original to the 1950s because it looks pretty rough, and the absorption system has been replaced at some point in the last 20 to 30 years. So now the next step what we need to do is we need to get some water running into the system to make sure everything's draining correctly, and we need to toss the camera through the sewer lines. So we want to look at the sewer lines from the house to the tank to make sure that there's no clogs, roots, breaks, cracks, nothing squirrely going on. We also want to make sure, what does the inside of those trenches look like? Again, we don't have records, so we don't know, was this done correctly? Did it get installed the way that it ought to have gotten installed? What's going on with this system? The only way that we're gonna be able to see it is by putting the camera in there and seeing what happens. So I'm gonna grab the camera and then I'll meet with you in a few seconds once we see what we're working with. Okay, so gone ahead, run the camera through everything, and it turns out I was wrong. It's actually the original system. They've just gone ahead and replaced the distribution box and most of the piping. Now, doing that, at least back in the early 2000s, late 90s, the permits weren't required. So that could explain why we didn't have any paperwork on the county side for telling us what we're supposed to be expecting and what's supposed to be in the ground. Now, with an original system from 1950s, it's gonna be kind of problematic, right? They usually only last around 30 or 40 years, and you start running into some issues as far as like leakage, root intrusion, or even just failure, just outright. This particular system, really the only thing I've seen so far is the roots in the tank, but the dry wells, they actually look pretty good, right? There's 2 of them that I found. All of the piping's been replaced with PVC, which is good. The only real issue with these pits is the one pit is actually covered in roots. Like there's so much roots in there, which I'm concerned about the structural integrity of the tank or of the pit. So let's go take a look at that and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so here's where the first pit is. We have a really large concrete lid over top of a terracotta cleanout. Now, if we look inside, it'll be kind of difficult to see with the camera, but let's go ahead and zoom in. You can see all those roots right below the inlet line. We can see water getting there, but not super quick, meaning those roots are partially obstructing the inlet line. That can become problematic as that can plug up the water and cause everything to backflow. If the pit water starts backflowing to the box, it's gonna put excessive stress on the other pit. Now, will the homeowner ever notice this? Not really. It's very unlikely. Usually when something like that happens, it just causes the one pit to fail faster than the other. And then when that pit fails, the other one may not be able to take water fast enough, causing a backup into the home. And nobody wants that. Now, with systems like these, usually you'll see people try to limp them along as long as they can. And the reason why, sewer systems are expensive, especially on tight lots. So we're more on the coastal area of Maryland where there's a high water table. Soil's not that great. They've got to worry about floods. They've got to worry about permits. Usually you end up with advanced treatment systems. So what most people will do is they'll try their best to get these systems to limp along as fast as they, or as long as they can, so they can end up saving money. Now, most of the time this will work and you don't really have to worry about anything too much, right? In this particular circumstance, because there's issues with root intrusion, now they actually have to do something to address that situation. And that situation is that they have a compromised tank in its structural integrity. Once roots start getting in there, the state's view is it's time to replace that tank, not just patch it. The other issue is going to be those roots on the dry well. The concern with that, again, is that it can plug up the pipe, causing a backflow into the system. Now, if you've never had your system looked at, it's a good idea to make sure you get somebody out here to take a look at everything and make sure things are flowing the way that they're supposed to. Every now and again, I usually recommend every 5 or 10 years, you should have somebody give a full once over on your system to make sure everything's playing nice. So you can fix things as they come, because most septic repairs are fairly inexpensive. Okay, so that's really kind of about it. Pretty much all I've got left to do is just go ahead and mark out all these parts, label some flags, leave it where it belongs, and draw them a new sketch. I hope that you found some value in this. These older systems are always interesting because you never really know what you're going to get until you get started. Sometimes you get lucky and you have a brand new system. Sometimes you don't get lucky. In this particular circumstance, it looks like they've done some repairs, but not really enough to make a huge difference in how everything's working. So if you found this enjoyable, hit that like button, hit subscribe. I have more videos posted every day on the world of well and septic, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.